Hello, teachers. Welcome to yet another Thursday and yet another session of CENTALks. In today's session, we are going to speak to an inspirational leader in education, joining us all the way from Ghana, Mr. Eric Leo Asiyama. In this session, we are going to get a global view of education and what it could look like in the future, keeping Ghana at center. The goal of today's session is to understand what education looks like in Ghana, specifically in Mr. Eric's point of view and school, and how this connects back to education in your own countries. It is our humble leader to bring leaders across the globe to the forefront and truly make the world a smaller place. Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Shruti. I'm the manager for the learning products team at CENTA, and I head the entire learning training side of CENTA. And today I have with me Mr. Eric Leo Asiyama, as you can see on the screen. Let me quickly introduce Mr. Eric. So he's an experienced educator from Ghana who comes from an engineering background with over 20 years of work experience in engineering and teaching mathematics, science, and computer science. He holds an MSc in IT, BSc in computer engineering, and a postgraduate in IT infrastructure, systems, and security. Eric is passionate about information security and e-commerce and uses cognitive science in the classroom. He currently heads the academics and technology management at Child Bilingual Institute in Ghana. Welcome, Mr. Eric. So happy and excited to have you with us. And also, before you share one interesting insight about Mr. Eric is that he's also one of our most active users on My CENTA, somebody who is a CENTA ambassador and truly advocates teacher professional development in his school and his country. So welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words. I'm so delighted to be here.
So we would love to know a bit more about your school, as well as about you and your journey in education.
Okay, that's nice. Now, I started my whole journey as an engineer, as I said. So at a point in time, I became a contractor in telecommunication engineering. So I was building cell sites. Now, policies do change and policies affect businesses. And one major policy that affected me indicated that most of my workers will now have the opportunity to be working directly with the main telecommunication companies. So the kind of work was a little bit going down. At the same time, my wife was managing a family school. So once a while, when a teacher does not come because of my mathematics and science background, I will step in. So that developed my interest. Then I introduced programming in the school. Then I realized that no, this is where I could be. So the journey, the transition to education began that way, introducing technology into education. Then it came to the extent that I believe that using technology in the education will have the family business to come out. So we now began to implement, not just introducing technology to the students and parents, to implement technology in the school management systems, making sure that the curriculum, we have our own curriculum developed because we want to come around the globe to look at best practices and infuse it, because Ghana's framework allows private schools to develop their own curriculum to make sure that it's in line with the national curriculum. And that indeed really helped me. So introducing it to the kids, to the parents, and making use of technology in the school, I realized that no, our school was now becoming the talk of the day around. Even though we were not doing adverts, people get to know our school because we were using curriculum to make sure that we teach Jolly Phonics very well. So our kids were reading very well at an early age. Curriculum also helped us to introduce robotics in our school. Our kids were known that this is one of the schools that they use technology, and that's got me into it. So I got really involved, went for meetings, then realized that comment and the rest I make at meetings, people were like, oh, you are really making an input. So I decided to get training in education. Did a lot of short courses. And you remember, once I got hooked onto CENTA, I've never looked back because of that appetite of educating myself and in using technology in my school. So even though our school, the population is around 300, our parents are from medium to middle income parents, and you cannot charge. We have decided not to charge as how those top level schools are charging. Most of them in dollars, we charge in the local currency. But we try our best to give them what they are receiving in those schools. So we realize that the best we can, how best we can do that is to train our staffs. And to use technology to train our staff is the most easiest way to do so and cost-effective way to do so. So that is our school. That's the picture, and that's how I got into education from the engineering background.
Thank you, sir. So, as I said, in today's session, we're going to talk a little bit and understand from you a little bit of education in Ghana and what the future really would look like in Ghana in the next 10, 20 years. And therefore, we have a set of questions that we're prepared to ask. So let me begin with, tell us a little bit about education in Ghana. How is it similar or different than what you see globally in the world?
Okay, when it comes to education in Ghana, in terms of the structure, it is until recently, it was a 6-3-4 system. Currently, it is a 6-3-3 system. That means 6 years of primary education, 3 years of secondary education, and 3 years of another secondary. So the secondary education is divided into two. That is junior high and senior high, all 3 years each. Okay. So that's the current structure of education. And predominantly it is public, even though we have private people taking a critical part of the education system in Ghana. There are various levels of private institutions, even though most of our conversation will be based on the public sector. Okay. So there are a lot of policies that is targeted at inclusivity and making sure that every child is involved in education in Ghana. So some of these policies are what we call the FQ. Now, this is a free, compulsory, universal basic education. So right from the primary to the secondary school, recently, they have added the senior secondary school to it. So right from the preschool through primary, all the way to secondary school is termed as basic. That means every child is supposed to be able to educate it to that level in Ghana. Now, another interesting policy in Ghana currently that is making sure that previously it was not compulsory to be in the secondary education, but now it is compulsory and it's been made free. So they have the free senior high school policy. And interestingly, that has included TVET, that is technical vocational education. So in Ghana, secondary school is free, and TVET, technical vocational education, it's also free. And these are wonderful policies that are geared towards inclusivity. Then when it comes to technology too, interestingly, I know around the globe, I'll be coming there to compare the education system in Ghana to that is going on around the globe. But Ghana is paying serious attention to technology. The country's education ministry itself, together with the communication and digitalization ministry, have come together to put up a policy that is meant to make sure that there is digitalization in almost every school, even though it's going to take time because of the challenges that are already there. It's really going to take time. But these are early good steps that have been taken in the education of the Ghanaian child. So as I mentioned about the access to technology, there are specific policies. And it's not only coming from the government. Interestingly, there are some private institutions that are also coming up with policies. One a policy so interesting is what we call the one laptop per child. This is a policy initiative from the private sector. And their aim is to make sure that digital devices are made cheap for parents to get for their kids in order to make sure that they will be able to use that in school. These are all wonderful policies that are helping in promoting education in Ghana. Now, if you compare Ghana's education to that of the world, you will say that recently, that's I think 2017, they made a policy shift from the type of curriculum that is used in the country. Now, they move from the objective type of curriculum to the competency-based type of curriculum. And that has brought a lot of changes. And most of these changes require training, and it is ongoing. So this is the picture of Ghana's education, and they are learning a lot from the global education system. So in terms of similarities, a lot of similarities. The differences are what we all know, that they are handicapped in terms of infrastructure and investment. But the early good steps have been taken, and that's a picture of Ghana's education.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eric. I think rightly, like you said, that the government, private sectors, they're coming together and they're contributing together towards improving education. I think there is a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And that's so true. It does take an entire village, in this case, an entire country, all of them coming together to really make education better in the country. And I think another great insight that you provided was how the focus is shifting, not just from, in terms of keeping students, the pedagogy, etc., relevant, but also focusing on teachers and teacher professional development and teacher training. So it's great to see that shift happening in Ghana as much as it's happening all around the world and in a lot of countries in the Africa and Asia space as well. So thank you so much about that. So the next question I had is, you have risen through many significant roles and are now head of your own school. Do you feel that there was any teacher in your school or college days who had a significant impact on who you are today and what you have achieved? Any anecdote or episode that you can share with us?
Yes, it's true. And sometimes when you think and go back, you become so, how do I put it? It's really affects you. Yes, indeed. They were in my school days. You have 3 teachers that I remember. One, I do not remember his name, but 2 of them, because they were siblings, I can remember their names. One called Jack Mensah, and one also Victor Mensah. Wherever they are, they have really touched me and they helped me in my career. So as a young boy, at that time, I think 8-10 years, I think I was in class 6 or lower grade than that. Now, these teachers were in the same school. One was teaching me English and arts, and the other, the sciences. Now, they showed interest in me. I do not know what they saw in me, but they showed real interest in me. So even though I was in class 5 or 6 at that time, they were helping me as though I was with the seniors. So I used to compare their notes with them. At that time, I knew what was a syllabus, to compare syllabus with the notes the teacher is making and going forward to give to the student. That indeed helped me. And in my SS level 2, there was also another teacher. I'm struggling to remember his name. He also took me practically as an assistant. So I handled most of his academic documents. So I got to know about the syllabus. I think that brought my interest in education, even though as a young boy growing up, I wanted to become an engineer. So education came up later on in my life in the engineering field. But these 3 teachers really helped me by the interest they showed in me and the kind of work they gave me. I think it gave me what I now can describe as self-interest, self-willingness to be able to do something on your own. And that is what has helped me now.
Great. I think even for a teacher and a leader, having that self interest and that self willingness to learn, no matter where you are in your career, I think that is very important. And it's great to see that that's something that you got from your teachers in the past. My next question, sir. What are some of the, you spoke about policies like F cube, TVET, etc., right? So can you tell me about what about these are really great and they work well in Ghana? And also in some of these policies that are already there, what are currently some of the challenges? You spoke briefly about it. Would be great if you could just give some examples, or even in your own school. What are some of the great things that are working out really well and some of the challenges that you see happening in some of the practicing some of the policies or some of the practices as well?
Yes, great. Now, these policies are so wonderful, even though they have their own challenges. So, for instance, the FQ, which is mainly for the public sector, I will later come to my school to tell you some of these policies that, since we are in the states, we are in the nation, we also mimic most of these policies and try to make it better to suit our various schools. So, with the FQ, that is targeted at the basic sector, making sure that parents do not pay for education. Money doesn't become an obstacle to a parent. So even the schools are giving capitation grant for a lot of the basic stuff that they need. That first they were asking from the parents. Even the parents, the kids are even being fed. That is the free school feeding. These are parts of these policies that are really helping. But of course, funding becomes an issue. And once a while, you hear some of the caterers complaining, but it is what it is now. The benefit is so clear. Then also the free SHS policy is one that has increased the enrollment in secondary schools. It is sad that a child will be able to make the grades to enter into the secondary school, but because the parents do not have money, the child will not be able to go ahead. This policy has come to take out all those bottlenecks, making sure that all kids get into schools. And of course, this will also bring challenges like the number of students in the class gives the teachers headache. But interestingly, because of one wonderful policy, I myself am doing my postgraduate in education right now. All my academic laurels are in engineering. A policy indicating that every teacher must be licensed in Ghana meant that even with all these years of training, I'll have to get training in education field. So such policies are helping to make sure that even though some parents will not be able to pay the policy has paid for them, that has also brought up additional challenge, which is a lot of students in the class. Training for a teacher is also helping this because, as I mentioned, in my training, they are helping us to get to know how to manage large classes. And these are tuned in order to be able to solve the challenges that these are coming will happen. I also mentioned the TVET. It's been included in the free SHS policy. And they are retooling a lot of schools. And because of my background, engineering background, it helps me to appreciate TVET. And even in my school, I currently advise students to also take a critical look at the TVET. So some of my students are selecting the TVET schools, even though previously it wasn't so. And the use of technology, we will appreciate that when it comes to technology cost. So the government is doing it bit, private sector is also doing it bit. And this is where private schools like mine have leeway, the resources, even though it might not be enough to do what they want to do in terms of technology. So for instance, in my school, knowing that you cannot properly implement a competency-based curriculum without technology, we have TV in every class. Teachers have been trained in, and interestingly, all my teachers are on the CENTA. So they have their gadgets, they are always trained, they always learn from the best practices around the globe, and they try to implement it in their small way in our country.
Great, Eric. So, I mean, it was great to know about the things you are doing in your classroom, in your school rather, just to, make these policies and practices come alive. And also great to know that CENTA is playing a small part in helping your teachers in their professional development journey. So, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, coming to the future of teaching, right? If I had to ask you, where do you see future future of teaching in Ghana in the next 20, 30 years as a school leader in Ghana? What do you think are some of the 2 or 3 big changes you think may happen or rather should happen in the next 20 years? In education, especially. Yeah.
In education, especially. Now, I have realized that the right beginning, the channels have been taken, the right steps have been taken. And nobody can discount the role that technology will play in education. So that is where the country will have to look. And interestingly, that is where the country is now looking at. There is digitalization almost in every aspect of the country's sector, and education has not been left. So I can give an instance in my school. You realize that recently there's all this about this chat GPT, AI in every aspect of our life. Now, I decided to use it as a teaching assistant. Just around the corner, I saw that CENTA advertised a course in that direction. But unfortunately, I couldn't take part because I had challenges with the payment system. I know when they bring it back, I will take part and make sure that most of my teachers will also take part. So what we are doing now, one of the things that takes a teacher's time is planning. One, if the teacher will want to plan, that is one aspect. Most of them do not want to plan. So even the one who wants to plan, it takes a lot of time. So we decided to pilot 4 weeks of our 13-week term. Communicated to them that those 4 weeks, you are not going to design. ChatGPT is going to design the lesson plan. And let's make sure to see how best we can follow it. Interestingly, the plan that was developed for us gave out every detail that is needed to be able to teach the kids very well. So now the challenge is to make sure that we train ourselves in such a way that we implement the best practices around the group when it comes to the lesson plan, because that is what technology is giving you. So you have to learn to be able to implement that. And that's having great effects on the kids. So technology is the way to go. The country has taken the lead. And obviously, challenges come from investment. Private sector is also coming in. And as for us in the private sector, we try to liaise between the parents and the school. Anytime you can get some budget anywhere, you try to invest more.
Great. I mean, I'm so happy to see that, you're one of those schools which really feels like generative AI is not maybe a bane, rather it could be a boon, and therefore it's the future, right? So the sooner we accept it and train ourselves, that's what maybe takes us one step ahead and away from, one step ahead of the rest. But also how any tool, even a generative AI tool, any technology in general is only there to assist the teacher and not replace them. And realizing the value of that, like you mentioned, sir, using it as an assistant to really help you in your work to make the quality of education better. So great to see those examples from your own school. So, coming to a teacher specifically, then, what competencies would you say a teacher of the future will need in Ghana, for example, right, to stay relevant? What competencies would they need? You also spoke about a competency based approach that you want to take in your own school. So, what would that look like for a teacher then in the future?
Great. Interesting. The competency base is for the whole nation, and as a school, we are also using that. And I think I must confess, India's education system is a system that I always follow. And when Ghana also decided to use the competency base, it makes a lot of things easier for me. Yes, this to be able to implement the competency base, it means first we must look at the teacher. So it is as though a parent will want to train the child very well. It means the parent will also have to be trained. You need to be trained before you can train your child. So there are several competencies that the Ghanaian teacher must have now and to the future. One is technological competencies. It's so important. There might be the technology, but how are you going to use it? So as you stated, instead of being afraid of AI, you're going to, once you have that competency, you're going to make sure to look at how best you can use to make your work easier, to reduce your time, for you to get more time for the kids. So now it is the human aspect of you, the teacher, that will be mostly needed. And the other aspect, the routines, will be left for technology. So it means as a teacher, you should have a technological competency. Then you need to be able to understand the curriculum. It's not just a textbook is there. You, the teacher, you are taking the textbook, you are reading, teaching. No. You should first understand the framework that the curriculum was built upon, what the Ghanaian child needs to be. So designing curriculum and planning competencies is also needed as a teacher. Then how do you get to know that what the curriculum wants you to teach, you have done that? So you should be able to assess. And assessment is not just giving tests, marking, and giving feedback. So as a teacher, you should have assessment design competence. How do you design your assessment? Or do you always copy assessment in the textbooks? And this reminds me of the current issue that is going on in Ghana. Now there is assessment of resources. Previously it was not, it was, but was not done critically. Now it's being done critically. That all resources must be properly assessed to make sure that the right skills are being taught, including even the soft skills. So they are trying to use the global soft skill builder framework. So all these are important for you, the teacher. You should be able to understand. If you do not have curriculum design and planning competencies, you can't do this. So that's also needed in terms of the assessment as well. Then one thing we know, technology cannot take over from parents, from teachers. You will not be able to, you will not be scared. Classroom management skills. Technology, I doubt technology will be able to take that from us. No. So we have to focus. Teachers must have classroom management skills. So these are most of the skills that teachers will need to have. And one most important is a teacher should also know that your training does not end at your first degree or at your education diploma. No, it is ongoing, continuous professional training. And my school has benefited a lot from the arrangement we have with CENTA. It's really helped us. It's really helped us. Almost every week, teachers choose the programs that they want, and they make sure that they listen to it and try to implement it. So a teacher must have that mindset that I need to improve continuously. I need to train myself continuously. And interestingly, technology is helping us to do this. And CENTA is also playing a bigger part in that.
Thank you, sir. And now coming to my last question for the day, if you feel like teachers are able to build these competencies right now and in the future, say 10 to 20 years later, what kind of career opportunities in Ghana and also global ones can they look forward to apart from just teaching in the classroom? What kind of exposure and global opportunities do you think will be available to them?
Thank you very much. I want to start by using myself as an engineer shifting into education. What will be the smooth transition? Training and having interest in education. From engineering IT background, I quickly realized that there are so many opportunities in education, not just in the classroom teaching, but education technology. So a teacher can have an opportunity to work as an education technology specialist. And I can call myself as that because I introduced technology in my school. Parents are happy. Kids are interested. And other schools in my community have also seen the benefit of it. So they call you and inquire for your advice, for your input. That is an opportunity that a teacher will get now and in the future, not only in the classroom. Now, these technology companies are also making use of curriculum developers because the systems or the softwares that will be used in the educational field that they develop will be assessed. So it has to come with an understanding from an education background. And definitely they will have to hire teachers to do this. Another opportunity for teachers when they build all these competencies, especially personal development competency, is the opportunity to work as an educational program coordinators. Now, so for instance, all the work that CENTA is doing, CENTA is making use of teachers, and that is a wonderful opportunity. These are opportunities that teachers will have. Teachers can also be educational writers. And all these services are not needed only in Ghana, globally. So teachers are not only tied to classrooms. Now teachers can have a lot of work to also do outside, share their experiences, and continue to also develop themselves.
Yeah. And I think rightly, like you said, the world has, and like I shared in the beginning, the world has become a small place now, thanks to technology, thanks to all the advancements that's happened in teaching and forums that are available now for us to connect with each other. So I'm very hopeful that very soon, all of this is going to happen. It's going to come true, and teachers are going to be at the forefront in a global way. Thank you so much. And I think it was a great session. And thank you so much for bringing Ghana to the forefront. And I'm sure our audience today learned quite a lot about Ghana, about you also, Mr. Eric. And I hope they find it inspiring. And they leave this session having a lot of thoughts of their own of what education looks like in their own schools, in their own country, and what it would look like 10, 20 years from today. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you very much for having me.